Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast. His name is David, and he's running for office. So he's going to tell us more about what office in particular he's running for, and also what political party he represents. So welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This is David Roberson. I am a lawyer, tax lawyer from Austin, Texas, and I am a proud member of the Libertarian Party here in Texas, specifically Travis County. I'm actually the secretary of our little group here. But as far as me, I'm actually running for the Texas Supreme Court. And unlike some states, Texas actually elects its judges and justices, and we can go back and forth on whether or not that's a good thing or not, but that's the state of affairs that it is now. So that's what we are dealing with. Now, with that particular role, you do have to have 10 years of experience as an active attorney in the state. And so as a result of my 12 years now of practicing law, I qualify for that requirement, meet that requirement, and additionally, the state Supreme Court justice race is what we call a statewide race. And the importance of that is for ballot access, right? And for ballot access means that the Libertarian Party, as a third party, a minor party, if you will, has to obtain a certain percentage of the statewide votes in any presidential election in order to remain on the ballot in the future and not having to petition to be on the ballot in the future. So my job here is not only to run to win, of course, and to be that independent voice for freedom and choice, but also to obtain ballot access for the Libertarian Party to continue its mission. That's really what the point is here is to stand for that alternative option, as well as benefit the internal activities of the Libertarian Party as we grow and become more influential.
All right. Awesome. It's awesome that you're qualified for the race. If you win the race, then you'll be able to go into the office, so that's awesome. And I understand that not every state has that requirement of 10 years. I heard about this one woman. She was a trendsetter. Her name was Jasmine Twitty, as I recall, and she was in her state. You needed to be a registered lawyer with the bar, and she got to be judge, and she was a black woman, so she was set trends. So that's interesting. So kindly tell us how you got to the Libertarian Party in the first place. What was your journey and road to get there?
Certainly. So I grew up my dad was in the military and my mother was very religious. So I grew up, ironically, in a religious right, conservative Reaganite family in the 80s and 90s. My parents were very involved politically as young adults themselves, and got us involved at an early age. I remember watching the election results for the first Clinton campaign and going to his inauguration. We were fortunate to live just outside of D.C. as my father was an executive for the Department of Energy. So I was kind of in the midst there of a lot of activity. Interestingly enough, as things progressed, I was actually a homeschooled individual. My mother was she was a certified teacher with the state, but we were very specific on our education pattern, and as far as wanting to be able to go forward and learn at your own pace and so on and so forth, which was very beneficial for me in certain areas and helpful in others that I was not as strong in. But anyway, so the reason I tell that background is because in, I believe it was 2000, there was a bill, H.R. 6, House Resolution 6 in the U.S. Congress that was designed to prevent and reduce the ability of school choice, right? It was going to restrict those rights, and of course, as my mother and my schooling would have been subject to that, we were motivated to go. We actually went down to the Capitol and met with our representative, Mr. Roscoe Bartlett, District 4, and talked to him about it, explained a lot of things about what benefited us and why we believed in it and who we were. So I guess you'd say I started lobbying when I was, in high school. And that was an eye-opening experience for me, as far as that you can actually get to your people if you choose to, right? Now, of course, once I went to the university here, Baylor and University in Texas, started opening my eyes and seeing there was a lot more out there than just, right-wing concerns and conservative mindsets. And I actually delved into those quite a bit and was a volunteer on the Obama campaign in the late 2000s. And that was another great experience with all the different perspectives and a lot of, obviously a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around that campaign, at least for me, and a lot of other Americans, I'm sure, share that. And so that kind of continued my involvement. Now, when I moved for work to Brooklyn in New York, I did notice that there was a lot more of the left-leaning mindset, which again is all well and good. There's good aspects to both sides.
Sure.
And as I continued my life up there, I kind of realized that there was a lot that I agreed with on the right side and a lot that I agreed with on the left side, but I didn't prefer the extremes, and I couldn't support the extremes of either party, right? And of course, during 2020, when everything became so caustic and so tribal, I found myself, upsetting friends on both sides of the aisle, if you will. And so I turned to my principles and my personal principles and gave a lot of thought and did a lot of reading and came to a conclusion personally of what I believed in myself, as opposed to what my parents believed in or what I had discovered in college when I was young and excitable. And it aligned directly with the Libertarian Party. So in 2021, I became a full member and jumped in with both feet. I ran for office in 22 for my local state house, District 49 here in Austin. And of course, being third party in a broadly deep blue district, I got my 2% of the vote like most libertarians in Travis County do. But it was a great experience, right? And then, of course, I continued my involvement with the Libertarian Party internally, and then when this cycle came around, I actually qualified based on my experience as a lawyer to run for the Texas Supreme Court. And it does it's two things, right? What it does, one, is you run to win, right? You want to be an independent voice for freedom and choice in that venue, specifically given its importance to the legal profession and the laws that we then have to live by, especially in this day and age when the Supreme Courts are hearing a lot of these issues on property rights or school choice or taxes or even some of your more social justice focused matters, right? It's an important place, an important juncture of law and fact and society, right? So that's the one reason. The second reason is because libertarians are a third party, a minor party, if you will, and the state Supreme Court justice race is a statewide race. Any votes I get count towards the minimum percentage that the Libertarian Party needs to get in all the statewide races in order to stay on the ballot in the future, right? And if we don't get enough, we have to petition to get our names back on the ballot in the future. So the idea here is, one, run to win, be that independent voice, but secondly, also on a technicality, obtain that vote total.
Sure. So for your position, what is your libertarian vision for a judgeship in Texas? How would you use your libertarian values in a judge role?
Certainly. So the most important part of libertarianism for me is that you look at the world through a lens of principle. You look through a lens of individual rights, freedoms, and liberties, right? So what I hope to do with that role is defend individual sections' rights to express their thought, under the auspices of free speech, use their property as they wish, whether that's their land, their vehicles, their livestock, and ultimately be free from unnecessary governmental interference. So in the instance of let's give for example, if there's a situation where an individual is being constricted by the government itself, or is being unfairly restricted by another private citizen or private company in any way, that's something that I would be against. My lens and my set of principles, it will always be to defend the individual liberties, provided they are not provided they're not hurting or harming anybody else. Because that's the basic libertarian principle, is that do what you will with your life and your property, right? As long as it doesn't harm anybody else's use or pursuit of their life and their property, right?
Yep. So I'm interested, you mentioned the point about big companies restricting freedom. Now, often when I think of libertarian values, they will say that private companies can do whatever they want. So can you please elaborate on this, how you see that big companies, are you talking about cronyism, where they would use their favors with government to trample on people's rights? Is that what you're talking about here?
Right. Pretty close. Yeah. So what again, we're looking through the lens of individual liberty, right? And private companies or private entities, they can do as they will to a certain point. Obviously protected rights like, gender, sex, religion, race, etc. Those are protected categories under the Constitution. So we have to be mindful of those, right?
Okay.
Absolutely have to be mindful of those. Those are the law of the land. But as far as things, as far as to clarify what I was getting at, is the idea that a government telling a private company they need to do X, Y, or Z. For example, let's talk about like your body, your choice, right? I think that cuts both ways. One, your body, your choice, right? You should be able to seek out an abortion, and that should be your right to do so between yourself and your physician, right? In a similar fashion, vaccines. That's your body. Again, it's your body, it's your choice. And so that should be a discussion that an individual decision, and it should be something that a company the government can require, or that they can restrict or otherwise, mandate, right? Again, that's your rights to your personal self and your personal bodily autonomy are essentially key to me. And I think that Texas has done a disservice to a lot of especially the female population with its stance on the abortion ban. So that would be something I would be definitely opposed to is any kind of a ban on bodily autonomy.
Okay. So what do you think that voters want in judges, particularly in Texas? Do you think they want somebody like you that has principles, or what do you think the traits and attributes they're seeking for judges?
Well, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could, right? I have Davy Crockett's my personal hero, and since I was 3 years old, I've got a Texas tattoo on my calf, actually.
Wow.
And I live here in Austin. I'm a graduate of two colleges here, one Baylor and one South Texas College of Law. And so I would hope that the good people of Texas want someone with principles. I would hope that.
Sure.
I mean, obviously politics, invades every little bit of our life, despite our efforts to avoid it. But I think that ultimately, when it comes to positions like a justice, I mean, you're looking at someone that I think ought to be circumspect, that should hear everyone out, that should, evaluate in depth the issues, not only the legal issues and the legal principles in case law and code, but also speak to how this is going to affect someone, right? So, for example, in the case that overturned Roe v. Wade, the ruling was technically correct, technically on a legal sense correct, right? But the effect of that decision was devastating, was awful, right? Yeah. So I think that you need to balance what is legal with what is right, and what is legal is not always what is right. And we're working slowly to this idea of getting towards where our laws reflect what is right. And of course, that's going to be hard. It's going to be impossible. It's going to take us forever as a society, right? Because of the fact that people have a lot of different views of what is right, and that's the balancing act you have to do between what is legal and what is right. Legal is the common denominator. What is right is subjective to a lot of people. So I think the important thing in a justice, and what I would try to aspire to, is to balance principle or apply my principles to both the legal precedents as well as the real world effects, and find the right answer.
Sounds good. So do you believe in the principle of jury nullification?
Absolutely believe in that. So if you remember, we are a Republican democracy, right? That is
Yep.
our function of government. Now, in my college years in 2006, I actually wrote a thesis on the idea of what's called active democracy, right?
Oh.
So that means that any kind of democracy only works if people are involved, right?
Yep.
We think about the preamble to the Constitution where it says that a government by the people, for the people, and of the people shall not perish from the earth, right? And
Yep.
the principal point of my thesis was if a government stops being by the people, the government stops being for the people, right? And so in this sense, we have a responsibility to ourselves and our society to be knowledgeable about the function of government, even down to the court level, the lower court level, even the criminal court level, and understand our duty as a jury, our responsibility as a jury, is to listen to how the law is presented, how it is applied to the facts and the facts presented. But if it's bad law, or if it's unfair, again, dropping down to the idea of what is right versus what is legal, then absolutely the jury ought to be able to. And in fact, they are, in my opinion, duty bound to do so. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, jury nullification is something I find not a lot of people know too much about. When our organization was on the college campus, about 20 years ago now, we had the Fully Informed Jury Association give a presentation to us, and that's what they present is very liberating and very eye-opening about the powers we have that are rarely discussed. So it's awesome that you support that. So, David, what's your strategy for reaching the voters in this race?
Sure. So I'm coming from a bottom-up sort of perspective, right? I'm not putting an R or a G by my name and hoping that gets me in the door. What I'm doing is going very grassroots. For example, I've actually been in contact with a number of organizations: the U.S. Vaping Association, the Texas Homeschool Coalition, the Texas Game Fowl Breeders Association, the Farmers and Ranchers Association, the League of Women Voters, the League of Independent Voters. I fortunately have connections in all those places, and some of them are even helping with some of the campaign as far as skills that I don't have, like website development and donation payment processing, which is really helpful for me. Really blessed for that. But the point of that is those organizations that I just mentioned constitute nearly 3.5 million voters in Texas, right? And those folks are often more concerned with someone that gives a crap about them individually and listens to what they say, or what their thoughts are and gives advice. And I've been serving that function as a lawyer for a couple of these organizations, giving them sort of helping hand on a lot of different things. Yeah. And out of that, I hope to, in return, hopefully they remember my name when they get to the ballot box, right? In addition, I've been going to several different other local conventions and speaking to not only talking in the crowd, but also speaking briefly about the same things we've been talking about today, just to get the word out. Because obviously, Texas is a red state, right?
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court race is not publicly or not generally televised or maybe as exciting as the governor or the attorney general or something along those lines. But if people know about it, and if they have a face and a handshake and a few moments of talk versus just seeing a name on a page, that's where the best way to get folks that are either uninformed about the Supreme Court race itself or that prefer somebody that is on the ground with them, talking to them, versus someone sitting in the ivory tower and expecting to win.
Okay. Earlier we touched on ballot access, and we talked about how this is a statewide race, and you do well enough, you can get the whole party on the ballot, the future ballot. So what is the requirement for your race to get on the ballot in Texas?
So the way it works is every election cycle for the statewide races, the Libertarians a third party has to obtain 5% of the votes cast in a statewide race, right? So it's not a huge number, but you also you can't just sit on your butt and expect it to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so for example, my colleague Ted Brown, who you had on this podcast before, I believe, is also running for Senate, right? U.S. Senate. So we've got, and the biggest thing for us is to have somebody in the race, actively in the race, doing things, talking to people, getting their word out, getting their name out, and, standing for what we stand for. And ultimately the people have to choose, right? The people have to choose if they want to vote for us. They have to choose if they want to pick principle over party, because, we are very bipartisan and polarized now with the R's and D's.
Yeah.
But we are the party of principle. Libertarians are the party of principle. That's what we stand for, and we want people to know what we stand for. And then they can make their own decisions. That's the freedom of America, right? But our point here is to get out, be known, be told, let people know about us, so they make an informed decision. And ultimately, hopefully, who gets their vote.
Sure. So for this campaign, are you doing this all by yourself, or do you have a team assisting you?
I spearheaded this by myself, and as I've been going along, I've been picking up help as I go along. I've always been kind of a self-starter myself. When I see something that I want to do, or I think that there's a need, I kind of get after it myself, and then tend to pick up help along the way, like folks that I'm working with. Her name's Donnie Anthony. You can call her Donnie the Don on X. She's been really helpful, really great supporter, and she's an activist herself, so she's been spreading the word out there. I've also been working with a couple of folks in those organizations that I mentioned, and they've been helpful as far as helping with the getting the word out and getting the website together and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I'm gaining advice and support from the presidential campaign I'm on, who's, they're much more organized than as you would expect them to be for a presidential campaign. So I'm kind of gleaning information off of them. I also have a strong support from the LP Texas chair, Whitney Bilyeu, and she's been a great source of counsel and a really good example as far as leadership in the party and in Texas itself.
That sounds good. So when do you find out for sure if you made the ballot? When's that deadline?
Oh, I am on the ballot.
Oh, you're
on the
there.
ballot. Yep, we filed on the 11th of December. I raised through about 45 donations. We raised the filing fee that's necessary. So that was just under $94 per donation on average. So that was nice, good support from the community for that piece. On the ballot, all set. And now we just got to get the word out and start making, doing the digital campaign and talking to folks like yourselves and see how it goes in November. We don't have primaries in the Libertarian Party. And there's no other person in my race that is Libertarian. I know the Democrats have two people that are going to go against each other in the primary in May, I believe. So.
Mm-hmm. So in Texas, for your race, you can pay a filing fee in lieu of gathering signatures to get on the ballot?
So, correct. Well, the filing fee is regardless, right? The filing fee is anybody that wants to register to be on the ballot, and it's different for each different level. For example, U.S. Senate is $5,000. Attorney General is $3,750. Same as the Supreme Court. The local state house races are $750 is the filing fee there.
Okay. So the filing fee, because you raised enough money, that's how you got in there. It wasn't signatures.
So for my race specifically, the two requirements, the two hurdles were the filing fee and the experience as an attorney, right? And so those two, once I checked both of those boxes, filed my application, took it down on the 11th of December, filed it with Secretary of State, and that's it. Now anybody can get on the ballot that way. It's just a matter of if you meet those qualifications and you've got the wherewithal and the gumption to do it, and I do. So.
Sure, awesome. So David, how can our audience support you in your campaign?
The biggest thing right now would be to listen to your podcast and tell other people about it. Look up David Roberson on Facebook, as well as the LP Travis website. I can send you some stuff, some actual addresses in emails if you'd like.
Okay.
But
yeah,
but the website should be up here in the next next week and a half. It should be pretty functional. And what I'm going to have on it is a number of interactive positions or pieces. So all the mailer, sign up for mailer, obviously a donation QR code, and several easy libertarian links. I'm the editor of the Austin Liberator, which is our local publication, so I have a lot of resources to pull from there. But also, one of the things that I'm really excited about is we're going to do a Reddit-style upvote, downvote for campaign positions. So we're going to pick 5 major campaign positions as far as policy goes, right? And have 5 to 10 subtopics or substatements in support of that. And the users will actually be able to go in or the people, once they send me their email and set up their account, they'll be able to actually go in and vote those up or down and start comment threads that'll link directly to Reddit, just to provide that community experience and that community conversation.
Okay, sounds good. So you were saying that your campaign site is not up yet, and you wanted to send me some information so I can put it in the show notes. So is it so that our listeners in the meantime can help you before the site gets up? Is that what you said?
No. So I don't need help right now. What I will need is people are the users to go once I get that site up and going. I would love traffic. I would love for people to share it up, and I'll get that to you as soon as it's available. Okay,
fair enough. All right, sounds good. So David, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign. We appreciate hearing about the excitement that you're bringing forth in the state.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and answer your questions, and looking forward to hearing from your viewers and winning this campaign in 2024.
Awesome. We wish you all the best in your campaign and also all your personal and professional endeavors.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
Bye now.